Around 100 years ago, my great-grandfather, James MacDonald, was taken by a tohunga to a sacred site deep in the bush. There, an image of the Atua Horoirangi had been carved into the hillside. James had the honour of sketching this rock carving as she looked out over the whenua and the iwi that she protected. She wouldn't sit in the forest glade much longer. Soon, Horoirangi's effigy would be chipped from the rock face, and the vines and ferns would cover any trace of where she'd once been. Artefacts are portals to the past that allow us to travel in time and space. Join me on a quest to unlock the stories of our taonga. They speak to all New Zealanders and tell us as much about our present and future as our past. Kaitiaki are guardians, protectors of their places and their people. They can be atua, deities, or ancestors, or people. Kaitiaki-tanga is taking care. It's guardianship, protection, stewardship. What can we learn from past practices of Kaitiaki-tanga, and how can they help to guide us in the present and the future?
Horoirangi was an ancestor from ancient times, I think, was where the name came from. She was a atua, she was a kaitiaki of this land, of the forest, the cultivations. So she was kaitiaki of all of those things as well, of course, as the people and the whenua. Our ancestors lived along here for a long time, from the time of Horoirangi, which would have been about the 1500s.
This is such a spectacular site. And what do you think it would have been like in the days of Horoirangi?
Well, it would have been bush-covered, of course, to tararimu, miro, matai, and the bush would have been bird-laden. At that time, our ancestors lived along this hillside and across the valleys behind, moving, I think, with the seasons. One of our ancestors, Te Paiaka, built a pā te whetingu in this spot where we are, and I think it would have been big, and it lasted for generations.
It's quite extraordinary to think that in 1909 they climbed down over here, and my great-grandfather sketched Horoirangi as she then was, you know, on the cliff face covered with red moss, the tapu colour, with a vine just growing around her like that. Absolutely beautiful.
Well, I think Horoirangi would have been here. You can see where it's carved into the rock, and I think she would have been in there. And it's right next to the pātaka, which is over here.
Horoirangi, the person, comes from the time of Hawaii. We look upon this Horoirangi as coming from the ancient past. And the decision to carve her there, we don't know the detail around that. We do know that Pātātorangi, the pātaka that was just to her left on the same piece of rock, was done probably around the same era. And I have to say that the finishing of that pātaka was of high quality. The elements may have caused the perishing of some parts of her, along with human, I guess, curiosity.
In the old days, how was that pātaka used?
Apart from storing tākoha for Horoirangi, it also stored a waka atua with a hairlock of our protector, Whareaitu, who was an atua of that generation as well. Probably the main skills of Whareaitu was to explain any elements of war that could be coming their way, and then prepare the people for whatever they have to do, making sure that what was ever in the pātaka was for the purpose of horoirangi.
That's quite beautiful as a balance between the male and the female forces right
That's
there.
right, yeah.
In the early 1900s, one of our tupuna manahi rangiriri decided she needed protection, I think. The late 1800s, in this area, the Native Land Court came to town. There was a lot of demand on the land. People were trying to get Māori land. And there were also tourists and people moving in the area, vandalising sites, stealing or taking taonga that was found. Our ancestor Manahi Rangiriri was anxious that something might happen to Horoirangi. Rangiriri was a tohunga who led at that time offerings to her and the ceremonies that went with that. And I think he could see there was no other tohunga to take over from him. And he realised that he needed to protect Horoirangi.
For people like Rangiriri, those tohunga that held all that tapu knowledge, must have been such a dilemma, you know, what to do, whether to pass it on with all its, because it's in a way, taumaha, you know, it's kind of heavy as well.
He made the decision to remove her, and he cut Horoirangi out of the cliff with an axe. They somehow got her up the cliff. They took her down, presumably on a horse and dray, down to a site called Mawai Spring, where she sat for some time.
Horoirangi was now safe from relic hunters and collectors, but her connection with the whenua had been severed. Her loss represented a changing dynamic between people and their environment that would echo across Aotearoa for the next century. Our journey to discover Kaitiaki and how its practices fit into the 21st century brings us to an extraordinary island at the entrance to Cook Strait. Known as Takapourewa, or Stephen's Island, it's one of the last few remaining natural habitats of that most ancient of taonga, the tuatara. Here, tuatara live in their thousands and are protected. But in times past and in other locations, they've been specimens and artefacts held in captivity and museums. Their survival was at risk, while they were disconnected from their whakapapa and their iwi. To some Māori, these reptiles are bad omens. To others, they're Kaitiaki, guardians of boundaries and ancestral knowledge. So what does this remote island and these incredible creatures, these taonga, the last living relatives of the dinosaurs, have to teach us about Kaitiaki-tanga in our lives and times?
So I think the reason that they're sitting like that is because of the breeding that's going on. There are females sitting around, and the males will sit proud like that. His spines are directly up. It looks to me as if he's like, I'm here and I'm cool. Come visit.
These two Ngāti Koata women have trained to work as tuatara handlers. They bring traditional knowledge and a spiritual connection with their tuatara Kaitiaki to provide the conservation science with a firmer foundation.
There's a lovely little tiny one I'd love to get my hands on over there, but it's too far in. And there's one right there. Ah! It must have felt to me. They're very fast. I don't know if I want to do it. Try it. But he's watching. He'll be quick. Got it. Hold on, dude. Hold on. Hold on. Come on. I'm lucky because this one's cold. The reason they settle down like this is because they're cold-blooded.
Yeah.
I have a touch.
Yeah.
And tuatara like the feel of your warm blood. And so when they're like this and they're cold, they're actually really good to hold.
Yeah. So this guy's, here's a lovely couch. I'll just lie here for a bit.
Yeah. So chances are this is one of our 2012 ones. So we were bagging, tagging, we came back out and we released them back where we picked them up. Very territorial, these guys. and they'll have to fight it out if you put them in the wrong place.
And do you hold it just with your finger like that?
Yeah.
So you know where the head is, so you know where the mouth is. Protects your fingers too from getting bitten.
It looks like a bit of a grin there.
I believe that Kaitiaki choose you just as much as you do them. And so for the tuatara to be in our kōrero nowadays, they've chosen us also.
I kept seeing tails and I couldn't see them all the time.
Yeah. I know for a lot of people tuatara was a sign of death, you know. But for Ngāti Koata, you know, what, 30, 40, 50,000 on this island here alone, it's just a part of your environment. And so what may have been, because they were not seen in many, many places, they were seen a lot for us. And so that is not the same story for us. In 1895, tuatara were the first animal to be protected by the Crown. Now, that was awesome. However, then there became certain rules and stuff around access to your own taonga.
Yeah.
And then also in 1891, through the Public Work Act, the whole island was taken.
It was taken for a lighthouse, and it went from the Marine Department to Te Papahatawhai. And there it remained. Our chairperson was encouraged by his kaumātua to do something about our acknowledgement of this island. And so he took it to court and won it. Suddenly this island, which had been set aside from Rangitoto, yet belonged to, was reconnected again. It was lovely.
After great debate, it was decided that it would be gifted back to the Crown. If Ngāti Koata was to take the island back and then run it, we couldn't. We didn't have the resources, we didn't have the money, we didn't have the capability, we didn't have the people. But finally, Ngāti Koata was back at the table and had to be taken seriously in that space. And so we were finally acknowledged and recognised as the people of this island, and the tuatara also.
And it did take a long time to establish that partnership role, but we've finally done it. We signed a document which acknowledges the partnership, and so that has given us a better chance of acknowledgement, a better opportunity of participation and discussion. And so, yeah, it bodes well for the future.
For 200 million years, tuatara have warmed themselves against the earth, and a combination of kaitiakitanga and conservation techniques will ensure they exist here for many more. Principles of kaitiakitanga are working well on this island sanctuary of Takapourewa, but the benefits of a relationship between tuatara populations and their iwi has yet to be fully recognised on the mainland.
So what's it like when you see the whanaunga of these tuatara here in captivity?
We're very excited that they're on the mainland. It's quite difficult also because we're almost treated like strangers with our taonga, and that's not good. And so when Ngāti Koata wants to talk about connections between our tuatara and our people, I think that it's important that they hear zoology degrees, scientific degrees, doesn't make you a kaitiaki of a taonga that is intergenerationally yours. And when I say yours, we are theirs also.
So people have that obligation to remember where these taonga have come from and the whakapapa that they're a part of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, we want to know that our people can be connected to our tuatara, and our tuatara continue to be connected to our people.
And to be a Kaitiaki is to speak for them too.
Definitely, because we know that the ones here are safe, because they're under our watch. We have leadership within this space. We have partnership with our Department of Conservation, with the Crown. And so we know that what happens in this space is at our call. What happens in the space where they are off the island is not in our call. And we need to fix that. We're here to share our love and experience with them.
Because you're the Kaitiaki.
Because we're the Kaitiaki.
What we see on this remote island is partnership in action. Mātauranga Māori and conservationists working together towards a shared goal, a thriving, living world. And it's such a pleasure and privilege to be here with these ancient creatures, these ultimate survivors. It gives me great hope. What other lessons do these taonga have to teach us? Kaitiakitanga is a term that's now associated with environmental issues, but traditionally it had a much broader meaning. Guardianship and protection were not just offered by atua or animals, but also by ariki and rangatira.
Well, welcome to Te Paki o Matariki,
Kia ora.
celebrating 160 years of the kingitanga.
There are those who guard the taonga related to tipuna, their history and their stories. Preservation of taonga is another form of kaitiakitanga.
I wanted to do something, you know. I wanted to put our taonga on exhibition. Yeah, the stories need to be told. We can't just leave our historical things packed away whilst nobody would know anything about them.
Te Ariki Tamaroa Whatamoana, son of Kingi Tuheitia, the Māori king, is the curator of a special exhibition of taonga from his family's private collection. The kingitanga was established in 1858, at a time when Māori were under pressure from the burgeoning settler population and their insatiable demand for land.
I actually carry a photo of him in my wallet everywhere I go.
You?
So he's a part of me all the time. He gives you strength.
I love that. I think the idea of having your ancestors as part of your everyday life, not just
That's
keeping them
like
for
how
something.
you carry, you carry your loved ones in those little lockets. Well, it's the same concept.
In 1884, Kingi Tawhio sailed to England for a king-to-queen discussion with Queen Victoria. Tawhio planned to demand that the Treaty of Waitangi be honoured and to request an independent commission of inquiry into land confiscations. When we look at the music box, that's to do with Tawhio as well?
Yes, so when he travelled to England, he didn't get his audience with the Queen, but he met with Lord Devonshire and they gifted this music box to him.
So beautiful music, but no meeting with the monarch. So you're asking for redress for the raupatu and you get a music box. Beautiful.
Beautiful, but yeah, it's not your land.
No. I'd love to know more about this extraordinary tokotoko.
This tokotoko belongs to my father, Kingi Tuheitia. It represents our ancestors. At the handles, we have Te Ariki Nui Te Atairangi Kahu. And just in the back there is Te Poia Herangi as the backbone of the kingitanga.
I don't think I've ever seen a handle like that.
It's the shape of the kahu, so the wings of a kahu. And as you see on the back there, you've got the 7 waka,
Ah,
all represented there.
so when the whole mutu is there, all the waka are drawn up?
Yep, and all the manas there.
Yeah.
It was stored away for quite a long time until one tohunga came to my father and said, "You've got this tokotoko in your cupboard. You need to bring it out. They need to be, shown to the world, shown to the iwi." And so from then on, he started using this tokotoko.
Who's this?
Oh, this is Korotangi. He was one of the birds that led our tainui canoe to the shores of Aotearoa.
So he's part of the family?
He's part of the family. My brother was born at the same time the Korotangi was gifted back, and his name is Korotangi. And my grandmother used to place the bird in his cot to look after him while he slept.
At the end of the exhibition, these taonga of the kingitanga are being returned to their home. Kaumātua and kuia gather to guide the treasures of their tipuna. The taonga will be reinstated in the wharenui Mahinarangi at Tūranga Waiwai Marae in Ngārua Wāhia.
Everyone has their role in the kingitanga. Whether it's waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to sweep the marae, or cooking the kai, putting the hangi in, looking after the pai. I grew up with my grandmother, and she taught me a lot of what she knew, particularly these taonga, how to care for them, what they mean to us. As you go on, you learn different things about the different taonga.
Nei te honore kia koe, e kore mutu e aroha mutunga kore, taua kera.
It was a dream to bring these out of the darkness and into the light.
In Umupuia on the Hauraki Gulf, Ngā Taiki Tāmaki have had a long-established connection with their Kaitiaki. It has shaped their relationship with land and water since their people first arrived. So your tipuna have been here forever?
Our people tell the stories of being in residence when Kupe arrived, when Toi Te Huatahi arrived, when the Waka Te Arawa came through, when the Waka Tainui and the Waka Aotea all came through our places here and acknowledged our ahika, our fires burning at the times of their arrival. So yes, we say that we've been here a very long time.
Laurie, this is an absolutely beautiful hinaki. Can you tell me the story about it?
Kia ora, Anne. This hinaki belonged to and was used by my karaua, my grandfather's grandfather, Anaru Makiwhara, also Andrew Maxwell. He was born in 1842 and passed away in 1920. 1987. He lived here. He was a tohunga tāmoko, as well as a man who liked to catch tuna, catch the eels. He was also a tohunga whakairo and a man of great knowledge. He used these hinaki, both here and in the Waikato area. The tuna, the eel, was a staple of our people back in those days. There are memories of the fences around here all hanging with eels while they dried, along with tuangi and the pipi, also threaded on the wiwi, on the rushes, and hanging on the fences alongside the eels. So this place has memories of the kai being preserved in that way. The Wairoa River is our main river running from Kohukohunui out to this Moana Maraitai. It used to run clear and clean right up to Oto, which is Clevedon, until they put the dams in up on the Wairoa River, which now provides 70% of Auckland's drinking water. And it was one of the main ports of Auckland in the first days. Since those times, the patterns of harvesting from the river have really changed.
So this taonga, how old do you think it is? It must have so many memories of those times.
It dates well back into the 1870s, 1880s. It's made of mangi, which is a giant fern leaf.
It's just beautifully fine, isn't it?
It is. Obviously, a lot of time spent in gathering the mangi in the first place, gathering it at the right time of the maramataka, the calendar, to ensure that it was in the right stage of development for the whatu, the weaving of these taonga. They have a reputation of immense durability, to be able to last 100 years and to be able to be rehydrated. So when they're in this state and they're quite stiff and strong, when they go back into the awa, they become a bit more flexible and they can be collapsed a bit and transported more easily. And then when they go back in the water, you can swell them up and place them within the awa to catch the tuna as required. The eel, the tuna, is the kaitiaki within our awa. We have a number of kaitiaki in the moana, in our ngahere, and in the awa.
In a way, you had it all. You had the volcanic soils and the islands out there and then the sheltered waters. Boy.
And what we didn't have was 1.6 million people living in Tāmaki coming to harvest and to impact on this environment. So through the growth of population, the abundance of our shellfish, our mātaitai, has been impacted. We're faced with some real challenges in bringing back the abundance that used to be here for our people and the kai that was so close at hand.
Those challenges were the inspiration behind Kiko Moana, the mahitoi of Aotearoa art collective, Mataaho. The artwork represents taniwha, those legendary creatures of oceans and rivers that are known in Te Ao Māori as Kaitiaki. How would these powerful guardians have to evolve to survive in degraded and dirty waters?
Kiko Moana is 11-metre long work, 5 metres across, made up of 60 tarps. In the beginning, we were considering what would a taniwha look like. We kind of imagined what a taniwha skin would have to look like to protect itself from polluted waters. From all of our research was taniwha as communicators, taniwha as kaitiaki, and taniwha as travellers.
Taniwha would often accompany waka, and their presence would sometimes be invoked by tohunga aboard the waka to help guide that, so both as pathfinders and path makers as well.
We've been together since 2012. We met at a series of wānanga, and we wanted to get together to make work, to support each other, and to come together to make ambitious things that we couldn't tackle as individuals.
One of the translations of mataaho that I really like is, it translates as a viewfinder of a camera or a line of sight. And I really like that each of our own opinions and ideas of a work can become one idea or concept. Often we like to use utilitarian materials that we kind of think have become modern-day Māori materials that we see in our communities. So the tarp was something that kept popping up, and you begin to realise that these new materials have, started to kind of build a new fabric of what we can make and identify as Māori.
Like the taniwha, the finished work of art has journeyed across oceans. Here in the Musée du Quai Branly in Paris, Kiko Moana is now the centrepiece of an exhibition of taonga from across Oceania.
So this is incredible. I mean, I think what you've done here is beautiful.
I thought it was balclave first. And I looked at it and I moved closer and I thought it was velvet. So I thought it was something very, very precious. And then the closer I moved, and then I was just like, this is tarpaulin.
Isn't it extraordinary that this collective of Māori women, mataaho, have used this material that in New Zealand, in Māori villages and homes you see covering a pile of firewood or using to close off a hangi or draped in the landscape of a building site. And here they've used it to create this extraordinary, vast, powerful artwork that opens this exhibition in the heart of Paris. All the different stories that can emerge out of this, from what's happening to rivers, to what's happening in the ocean with plastic, to the need for these ancient ancestral creatures in order to survive, to adapt and change and innovate.
It goes way beyond language. People understand it. They understand how beautiful it is, how important the ocean is, and how threatened it is.
When Horoirangi lived at her pa in the 1500s, when Laurie Beamish's tipuna made his hinaki, when the kingitanga was established, the concept of kaitiakitanga hadn't yet needed to adapt to meet the environmental challenges that we now face. I'm travelling to Bourges in the heart of France to visit an astonishing artwork by George Nuku. His work challenges us to think of our past and our approach as Kaitiaki to the future.
I love these little figures. Not sure if they're Europeans in the Renaissance with moko or whether they're Māori who visited the Renaissance. Whakahauru are made of plastic, and all the bottles bobbing in its wake. So George has got his tickle sitting here, holding onto a plastic bottle.
I said to him, "You are a contemporary artist." And he said to me, "No, I'm a traditional artist, but I use material of this century."
Tēnā koutou e hoa mā. Bonjour, mes amis. My name is George Tamihana Nuku. This room is completely speaking about the relationship between the old and the new, the relationship between the modern and the traditional.
When I look at this space and it's capturing the essence of the Pacific Ocean right here in the heart of France. And I know sometimes in Europe, the Pacific feels a long way away and marginal, but it's a third of the Earth's surface. And if a third of the Earth's surface is drowning in plastic, and if you've got islands that are being drowned, and coral reefs are dying, and the fish are, choking on plastic, I mean, that has a huge impact on us all. How do people react to this exhibition when they come in?
They're surprised. They said this exhibition is beautiful, but the beauty is the pollution.
Yes.
And the pollution is beauty, so it's difficult for them, and it's interesting.
I think the connections that will be made by people making observations and reflection and contemplation, and most importantly, feelings. Perhaps these feelings are conflicting: sadness, anger, joy, feelings of appreciation. This is good. Then I'm doing my job.
Like Kiko Moana, George's work speaks to the scale of the wero that we're facing and the need to take responsibility for change. Horoirangi the Kaitiaki is now herself protected in Rotorua Museum. She no longer surveys the ngahere and whenua. It's now her people who care for these places, and her descendants guard her as the tohunga once did.
As long as we had Horoirangi a Tiotonga, we had the mana of the land, and thereby we had the strength and the prosperity of the people who lived there, which was us, Ngāti Kia, Ngāti Tura.
So that's an extraordinary presence in your ancestral land.
Oh, yes, yes. She was the life force, yeah. And when we made offerings to her, the tohunga would have karakia, and the rūwahine would make the offering to Horoirangi, and that was to continue the well-being of all the people who lived at Tiotonga here.
So from those days, using her mana to make sure that the people continued to prosper and be strong, and it came down then to rangiriri. And can you explain the role of that tupuna?
Rangiriri, he was Ngāti Tura, and he was the last tohunga of our whakapapa, our generation.
So how did rangiriri take care of the Kaitiaki?
Unfortunately, because of people were raiding our burial caves at the time, taking taonga out of the caves, hunters and that mainly. So Rangiriri decided to take her out for protection.
You know, there's the protector of your people having to be cut out of the living rock to protect her.
Yeah, that's right.
So interesting thinking about the times back then, 100 years ago or more, and how the world was then, and compare it to today.
Yes, I quite often think about that, and I think about my grandchildren and what they must have had then and what we haven't got today. Rangiriri was the last of the tohungas who looked after our atua, but now I look at what we have today with the lakes and the rivers, and I worry about what we're leaving behind for our mokopuna when I go.
At Umupuia, iwi are taking steps to ensure the ocean and rivers will be clean and plentiful for their uri whakaheke. The health of the eels, their kaitiaki, will tell them if they're succeeding.
A couple in here, the little fellas.
When we can still put a hinaki in here and get some tuna, it's an indicator to us that the flow from this puia is still healthy. Those essential Kaitiaki creatures, the tuna in particular, demonstrate the mauri is still within the awa. The circumstances where our awa have been degraded and numbers of awa have suffered from hard surfacing, from development, from culverting, has interrupted the breeding cycles of our eel, our tuna. When that becomes interrupted, we're losing our Kaitiaki.
This is looking brilliant, Laurie. So what's going on here?
Was part of the plan, Anne, is to enhance the mauri of our waterways. So we're starting at the top of the maunga and coming down through the ngahere, and where we're connecting up to the bush, the ngahere, we've got a corridor of plantings that are going to provide shade and cover for our tuna, our eels, and our inanga, our whitebait, kokopu, which are the adult whitebait, and the koura, the little freshwater crayfish, and the other kai that flourishes in here. So we've already seen the watercress growing back, we've seen the eels and the whitebait, and the kokopu, the native trout, all starting to come back and flourish. It's providing habitat, and it's also providing a filter. In this area, we're looking to plant rongoa and plants that will sustain our whenua and ourselves. Further up, we've widened the planting out, and we've got marakai, and where we're doing kaioranga, so we've got our food gardens up there, we're planting a food forest, huarako, our fruit trees. That's for the benefit of our grandchildren one day.
So you're just so lucky because you've got the ngahere up there.
Yes.
Does it go all the way out to the moana, out to the sea?
It does. It links up our pātaka kai, our food basket of the moana, and our pātaka kai of the awa, that food basket there with the food basket of our gardens and our bush. So our traditional kai from the bush, the ngahere, and the medicines from the bush are really important to us in this place. And to retain the knowledge that our ancestors have passed to us and how to utilise and look after the food, the medicines that grow naturally in these places.
Where the river meets the sea, plans are in action here too. By using Māori methods of conservation, such as rāhui, kaimoana and mātaitai have begun to flourish again.
So this beautiful shoreline's got a rāhui on it?
About 15 years ago, our people were observing all sorts of different groups of people coming here to Hauhaki to harvest our tuangi, our cockles. We noted that the numbers of our cockles reduced hugely. In fact, we got down to the point where we asked what was Ministry of Fisheries then, now MPI, to do a survey for us so we could establish a baseline. From that point and over the next few years, it got down to 10% of our original baseline. At that point, our kaumātua and kuia decided that we had to stop all harvesting, including ourselves, in order to bring back our taonga. We applied to the Minister of Fisheries to assist us with a 1868 temporary closure alongside our rahui. So we had the strength of a policy and a policing ability through MPI to assist us. We've now had this rahui on for 8 years, and the annual surveys show that our population of cockles has come back. In fact, we're now the only beach between Patawa North that has a full population of juvenile to mature cockles and the size range in between. The actions we took have allowed our taonga to grow back.
So can you explain to me how the Kaitiaki have become, we have become or need to become the guardians of the guardians?
Sure. Our Kaitiaki were and still are for us in a primary position to tell us these messages. But it's become us who have to look after them and provide conditions where they can thrive, to control our activities so that we stop destroying them and stop impacting on them as much as we are. And
sometimes I think that those Kaitiaki, they're all still talking. It's just that we've forgotten how to listen.
The language gets lost, and the reo of our manu, the language of our birds, the language of the tuna, the language of our ika, is there to read if you know how to stop, take time to listen and understand it.
Umupuia and Takapourewa are just two examples of how Kaitiakitanga can help to protect and rejuvenate Aotearoa. When the tohunga Rangiriri brought Horoirangi in from the forest, he knew his world was changing. Our world is changing again, and again we can look to Te Ao Māori and Kaitiaki for inspiration. Now is the time to listen to the voices of our Kaitiaki and to ask ourselves, how can we be the guardians of our future?
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.